I'm gonna say this and don't get mad at me. But if you're married, you should be sharing finances.
Now, whether or not you have a man in your life, you're financially independent. The ability to pay for your bills remains unaffected.
We get into relationships and we want to prove that like we're together, we are one. So then we decide to open up a joint account and put all our money in it. Mistake. Here's why. Once you start to commingle your funds like that, that means you guys have to agree on how all of that money gets spent.
You ever notice how quick people are to talk about love, but not about money? We post the trips, the gifts, the moments, but never the conversations that really matter. The truth is, money problems don't just hurt your wallet. They destroy trust, communication, and stability. Most couples avoid it because it feels awkward, uncomfortable, maybe even judgmental. But that silence, that's what causes resentment. One person saving, the other spending. One's planning for the future, the other's living paycheck to paycheck. Before you even realize it, love turns into pressure, and partnership turns into survival. But here's the reality. If you can talk about money, you can build anything together. Start with honesty. How much do you make? What do you owe? What do you want? Then create a joint account for shared goals, rent, bills, savings. Keep your personal accounts too, because independence still matters, but build something that reflects both of you. Invest together, so not just in stocks or retirement, but in the future you actually want to live. Learn how to make money work for your relationship instead of letting it tear you apart. At the end of the day, it's not about who makes more, it's about who's willing to grow more together. Check out some of these videos to help you take that next step toward financial peace and real partnership.
I want to talk to you guys about the joy of being broke. And maybe a year and a half ago, if I would have seen this on my For You page, I would have felt better about my financial situation. A year and a half ago, I was pregnant with my second child. My husband and I were stretched so financially thin. We were late on everything. Everything was overdrafted. We gave up a second car. We had cut down to bare bones, and we still felt like we are drowning. And I made a video about this. And between the likes, the saves, the shares on that video, it tells me it is a relevant topic, and I should continue to speak about it. I know financial stress can cause a lot of marital problems, and I never hear that talked about online. So I thought, why not talk about it today? If you don't even finish this video, the number one thing I'm going to tell you is you need to drill the grass is always greener mindset out of your head and never pick that habit back up again. Because of social media, we will always see a husband that's a harder worker, a higher earner, is able to afford a better lifestyle. His wife is able to stay home with the kids, do Pilates 7 days a week, and somehow she also runs a multi-million-dollar company from her home when her kids go to bed. The grass is always going to be greener. The reality is you have no idea what the hell is under that grass, so focus on your own patch of grass. When you are in the thick of a financial mess, you can completely understand why financial stress is cited as one of the main reasons for divorce, because that is so stressful and it really takes a toll on your marriage, your intimacy, your connection, everything, and not only on your marriage, but the relationships around you. Like, I felt like I could barely function around other people, let alone my spouse. Also, resentment. Resentment is a huge, huge problem in marriages, and I think it can creep up on you quick, so I'm going to just talk to you guys openly. Interestingly enough, through marriage, I'm actually related to a divorce attorney, and he was doing a podcast, and the podcaster had asked him, what's the number one reason you've seen in your 30-year career for divorce? And he said, hands down, people put their kids first and their marriage second. And I have just clung to that since I heard it, because it is so true. When you put your marriage first, everything else trickles down, and in the midst of financial turmoil, when you guys are probably resenting each other, you're fighting, you're so stressed, you just want to rip your hair out, I really just clung to the fact that if we just always put our marriage first, it should be okay. I'm not saying there weren't hard days. I'm not saying there were times where I felt like we were just passing ships in the night, where we didn't even see each other between jobs and the kids and everything. And it was very high stress for a very long time. But I really just clung to that. You know, if we put our marriage first, everything else will trickle down. Everything else will fall into place. And it did. Secondly, my husband and I, we don't keep tabs on each other. Now, this is something that my husband was really adamant about before we started dating, before we got married, whatever. He's like, we don't keep tabs. You know, if I do the dishes 8 days in a row and you sit on the couch like a bump on a log, I don't care. We don't keep tabs. We both just contribute to the overall picture. Marriage is not 100% all the time, and anyone who's married can attest to this. Sometimes you're giving 80%, your partner's giving 20%, and vice versa. There have been seasons of my marriage, especially in the middle of financial strain, that I was like, how are we ever going to make this work? Like, are we going to get through? And again, just keeping our marriage first, not keeping tabs on each other, and just seeing each other for hardworking individuals that we are, and not trying to blame or put blame on one another. And then lastly, this family member, he's a divorce attorney, so he deals with a lot of people's finances, creating the settlements, deciding what's going to go where and how they're going to break it up in the case of a divorce. And he was asking me if we had a combined bank account, and I said no, because we've always been broke. Like, why do we need a combined bank account? One of us is always negative, something's always overdrafted, whatever, we don't need it combined. He said, actually, you're so wrong. He said, first off, doing this kind of passing back and forth money-wise to like get one out of a bad spot and the other one's account current, whatever, he said, you know, that can create resentment. He said you should just have total transparency. Like if your bank account is one, then you know maybe so-and-so is spending a little extra here and you guys can discuss that. It just kind of takes all the guesswork out of your finances when you're able to see everything together and have a clearer picture of maybe what the root cause of the problem is, and then you guys can work together on that as a married couple. It's going to be okay. It's just a season. It might be a long season. My season was roughly 18 months, and that does feel like forever to have your back against the wall, but I promise it gets better. And if there's any advice I can lend, it really does help me if you guys leave comments on what you want to know about, because I'm an open book and I'm really willing to touch any topic. So just let me know, and I'll talk to you guys later.
My boyfriend and I sat down yesterday with one another, straight up asked each other, how much money did you make this year? And we've been dating for about 3.5 years. We've lived together for 2 years. And we talk about money quite often, so we know like who's getting what promotion or deals, or like we talk about that stuff. So we knew the ballpark we would be in, but we literally sat down and calculated our incomes and talked about it. Because a lot of people wait until they have families or they get married or they have kids to start talking about finances, which is crazy because if you don't know where you're at right now and where you're starting and what your spending habits are and how much you're spending, how are you supposed to then eventually like plan for your future and a potential combined future with someone else? So we talked about each of our incomes, our different income streams, what we then want to achieve next year, and then even one as granular as like looking at different accounts. So like my boyfriend, what does he have in his 401k? How is he investing that? Me, I just opened a SEP IRA. Like what kind of things am I purchasing to have in that SEP IRA? So I think everyone should do this. It can be a little uncomfortable at first, but I grew up in a family that was very open about money, and I would not be as financially literate as I am were it not for the openness in the family. So highly recommend doing this with your significant other.
You know, one of the questions I find hilarious, especially when I get on live, is a lot of guys, it's always guys, they always ask me if I would ever date somebody that makes less than me. And I know what they're doing with that question. They want me to say no, I will not date somebody that makes less than me, so they can go ahead and call me a gold digger and say that I'm only looking for somebody to provide for me. It's less on the actual number that they make, and it's more of how they can match my lifestyle. If I'm able to go out to eat whenever I want, if I'm able to take a large trip like to Europe or to Asia once a year, I want to make sure that the person I'm with is able to do that with me, because that's the things that I like to do. With those activities, they take money, and no, I'm not going to pay for them. I'm not. Obviously, use cases of like if you meet your partner and they're currently studying to be a doctor, and you know it takes time, that's a different component, and that's like a different stage of life. But to look down on women for having these type of financial standards, I think it's just crazy, because you guys want us to have it all, right? Want to have the looks, the brains, the money, because you guys don't want to provide. But when we ask for that component, it's crazy for you guys.
Every time my boyfriend complains that my standards are way too high, I'm always like, okay, you have the freedom to go and date a girl that splits the bill, does 50-50, contributes financially to the relationship. There's a lot of girls that are happy to do that. Why did you choose me? Why are you with me? And his answer is always the same, which is, well, if I dated a girl like that, she would keep me poor. I wouldn't be as motivated, I wouldn't work as hard, I wouldn't want to be better or grow or want better for my life if I'm with a girl that doesn't push me and doesn't have any expectations from me. He doesn't even necessarily mean poor financially, because a lot of men were born with money, but in a matter of a mindset and mentality. You know, whether you like it or not, whether they're not aware of it yet, subconsciously, most men are like that. And this is why maybe they might choose a girl at the beginning who helps them when they're at their lowest, but then once they made it, they dump her for a girl who is the opposite and has the highest standards and would have never dated them at their lowest. If I can give you a piece of advice from my experience dating, as someone who's always had the money to contribute in a relationship, no matter how rich, successful, and financially stable you are as a woman, if your partner doesn't feel like he's the one providing, he's the one supporting you and helping you, he will take advantage of you. Inevitably, he'll get comfortable and eventually he'll get bored. Again, maybe there is 1 in a million men who are not like this. They're better people and understand what you're trying to do for them. But once I learned this, my experience in dating got a lot better. So save yourself some time and energy if you can.
I'm gonna say this and don't get mad at me, but if you're married, you should be sharing finances. Everything should be hidden one account and coming flowing from that one account. You should get an allowance, whether it's $200, $400, $500, $1,000 a month. Each of you should have a set amount of money that flows to you for your personal spending, because people need their independence. But everything else should hit that one account, because you cannot properly plan and have a common goal if you guys are not on one accord, if you guys are not sharing finances. And so I see too many people saying, this is my money, that's her money, that's his money, this is mine. No, it is all both of you guys' money.
When Kevin and I go on vacation, I pay for flights, hotels, activities, basically everything except food. And you're probably like, girl, why the heck are you paying for all that? First of all, there is a large income disparity between us, and if we were to say that we wanted to split everything 50-50, a lot of the trips that we've done, like to Singapore, to Bali, would just never be able to happen. I don't want to compromise on our ability to enjoy life and travel while we are young and healthy just because I'm stingy. Second off, I would be much more stingy if I did not have the intention to stay with this man, but Kevin is an angel. I love him to death. Like, obviously I have the intention to stay with him, so like, my money is our money. In the future though, my money is my money and his money will be my money. I'm just kidding. I know that if the roles were reversed, Kevin would also do the same for me. And I will say generally he is pretty grateful for everything. So the system works for us.
So I want to talk about this comment. Why men love women that are high maintenance, but they don't love paying for it. I got distracted cooking. Now I want to set the record straight because I really don't want to give the wrong impression. A woman who is financially independent is the most attractive thing ever. It's a symbol of self-reliance, empowerment, and the ability for her to shape her future however she sees fit. Now, whether or not you have a man in your life, you're financially independent. The ability to pay for your bills remains unaffected. All these women that you see on TikTok preaching about a man paying for your stuff, all of them are financially independent. Trust me on this. So like I stated in my previous video, a man that values you invests in you. So if you happen to be in a relationship with a partner who prefers you to be upkept but doesn't want to contribute financially, that's not a partner. Now, in a partnership, a man's role should never be confined to just financial support. But I believe a man who values you understands the importance of contributing to your well-being, and not out of a place of obligation, but out of a sincere appreciation for your partnership. And again, this looks different for every woman, you know, whether that's getting your nails done or your hair done, or you just need a nice professional massage after a whole week spending with the kids. And look, when a man wants to introduce you to his friends and family, it logically follows that he'd be willing to assist you in presenting yourself well. After all, why would he not be supportive in that aspect? Again, in my opinion, a man that values you will invest in you. There's just no excuses. Look, relationship is about a healthy balance. So if he wants you to look presentable and upkept and all the whole 9 yards, whatever that looks like for him and you should never be putting more effort and resources than he does. There has to be a healthy balance. There has to be contribution from both ends.
Here is how to talk to your man about money without it being weird or awkward. You should do this really, really early on. This is the full roadmap, so you're going to want to pay attention. Number one, you need to start talking about income. His income, your income. Sharing how much you make shouldn't be a scary thing. It should help people level up in life. How many people are underpaid because there is a lack of salary transparency? Once you have this open and honest conversation about how much each other makes, you can talk about how much you can afford, your budgets, rent, all of the nitty gritty. If you don't know how much your partner makes, there's a lot of mystery and there might be false expectations. This conversation done in the beginning, there will be no surprises later on, and you will kind of get a feel for each other's career path. Second, it's so important to talk about how you were raised. A lot of people don't know this, but a lot of your beliefs come from how you were raised and your childhood. If your mom was a stay-at-home mom and your dad paid for everything, you might expect that from your future partner. If his parents both worked and contributed, he might expect that in his future as well. There is no right or wrong answer to this. It's just what you as a couple feel comfortable with. Lastly, and this is where a lot of women mess up and compromise, you need to be so clear about your expectations and what you want in the relationship financially. Do you want a 50-50 relationship, an 80-20, a 70-30? Doesn't matter what your friends are doing, you need to do what works for you. When you have these conversations, you need to be open and honest, and don't just say stuff to make him happy. Really dig deep and figure out what it is that you want so that you will be happy long term and these won't cause issues later on. If you guys can't come to an agreement about these issues, you might not be compatible long term. Actually, you are not compatible long term because financial issues are the number one things that couples argue about. Do you think it's appropriate to talk about money early on? I personally do because you get it out of the way. Let me know how you handled this with your partner and your thoughts. Bye.
My husband and I got in an argument today, like a big argument. Hardly ever fight. We connect really well on pretty much everything. Today, we were having a conversation about one of the big three, and today it was about finances. I hate talking about money. I hate it. I grew up without a lot of it, and so now as an adult, I have a husband who takes very good care of us, and I definitely have more than I did growing up. I tend to have an abundance mindset, feel like I can spend what I want to spend and have the things that I want to have. The realization that I had in this conversation with my husband this morning was the income of your household is influenced just as much by what you spend as what you bring in. I do most of the spending, right? I run the household. I buy the groceries, I buy the clothes, I pay for the sports. I do all of that. And so it made me realize if we want to feel better financially, we want to feel more secure, feel like we're not lacking, feel like, you know, we have everything that we need, then we need to be focusing on what is going out just as much as what is coming in. I think that when I do that, that is a great sign of respect to my husband who works so hard. While that conversation was really hard to have, I didn't like it. There were tears. It made me uncomfortable. It made me feel ashamed, guilty, all of the things. It was necessary. I don't come on here very often and share specifics about my relationship. That is something that I definitely struggle with in our relationship. And so that's the mindset that I'm having, is having an abundance mindset in the way that I spend responsibly, honoring my husband's hard work by spending responsibly, doing what I can while I'm not the primary breadwinner and I don't bring in a ton of income. My income is actually how much I spend.
I might get a lot of hate for saying this, but I have to say it anyway. You have to talk about finances with your significant other if you want to have a long-lasting relationship. You can't avoid talking about these things because finances become an integral part of your relationship. And in a way, the relationship becomes a business because all you do with the relationship is you add onto it. You add value and you add assets to it. You need a P&L for it, baby. That's all I'm saying. What this does by making finances just part of the relationship is it frees you up to actually live life the way that you guys want to live. It shouldn't be the sole focus of everything. But if you're not aligned on that, it will end up tearing the relationship apart.
Are you guys talking about money with your partners? Because I just saw a video of this girl that said her and her partner have been together for a few years and they just talked about money for the very first time, and I'm shook because that could never be me. I literally do a monthly audit of everything we spend and I have it organized in a spreadsheet by category. Like I'm actually about to do like a 2024 wrapped like Spotify, but for my expenses edition, because I did this last year and I just love seeing how much we spend on every category and how we could improve. Is that crazy? Yeah, probably a little bit. I grew up in a house where we didn't talk about money, so no, I'm convinced that if you don't talk about money, you're just bad with money, and talking about money has allowed me to learn how to be good with it, because if I never talked about it, how would I learn anything? My partner and I were gonna like move in together. We knew how much we each made, we knew how much we were already paying for rent, and then we had to come up with a budget. So I'm like, how are people coming up with like mortgage rates or budgeting or figuring out if they can have a family if they're not even talking about it? I know it can feel uncomfortable if you've never talked about money, but if you've never talked about money, put it on your list and just sit down and talk about it, because the thing is, if you only talk about it when it's bad, you're just never going to want to bring it up because it's always an argument. So if you talk about it and make a weekly or monthly meeting, whatever feels good to you, then it's just going to be so much easier to talk about it, because you're going to be talking about it through all stages, when it's good, when it's bad, when you're planning, not just when it's like a stressful time.
How we split our finances as a couple that just moved in together. So many people are coming for him with these comments. Not that there's anything wrong with 50-50, but right now we are definitely not 50-50.
Not even close.
Because I just graduated college and he has a few more years in the work world, I would say right now it's like 80-20. I'm still kind of working to get myself established.
Gotta let her get established and then we'll slowly get to like 60-40. For now, Just let her save as much as she
I
can.
also agree though. I feel like when you're living together or like serious with a partner, does it really matter? Like what's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. Like at the end of the day, I really don't care all that much because we're trying to budget together as a couple. And like both of us are saving. I don't want him to run dry and he doesn't want me to run dry. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And it depends on how much you make, right? So
you make $300,000. Yeah. And she makes $75,000. And your rent is $3K. Yes. And you're telling me you do not split it 50-50? No. So how do you do it? Well, I pay $22.50 and she pays $7.50. In what world is that fair? It was my idea. You split the place 50-50. Why the hell wouldn't you split the cost like that? Well, because even with me paying more in absolute terms, it's still much less of a burden on me than it would be on her at $1,500 a piece. So why are you being penalized for earning more? I'm not. And because she's able to save a little bit of money on rent, she's been saving and investing and growing her wealth. Maybe I would feel a little bit different if she was just blowing all the money, but she's not. Eventually, man, all of this money is just going to be ours anyway, so I literally have no issue with it. And even if that doesn't happen, I mean, I still think we're good with this arrangement. You're never going to convince me that's fair. I don't need to convince you of anything, man. There's nothing wrong with 50-50, but every couple needs to figure out what's the best solution for them. Whatever arrangement each person is fully on board with and is fully happy with is more important than how fair or unfair it may seem to other people. I don't know. I guess that makes sense. And listen, if you wanted to learn more finance tips, you can click the follow.
Relationships and money, the big mistake everybody makes, and the tip no one talks about. We get into relationships and we want to prove that like we're together, we are one. So then we decide to open up a joint account and put all our money in it. Mistake. Here's why. Once you start to commingle your funds like that, that means you guys have to agree on how all of that money gets spent, which takes away a lot of freedom from individuals. And if you don't agree on something and one of you wants something and the other one doesn't, it causes resentment over time. And you don't need that in your relationship. So here's what you do. This is literally like the best advice I was ever given about my relationship. Instead of pooling all of your money together, determine a percentage of your income that each of you will put into your joint account. That way, if you make completely different incomes, it's fair to both of you. Putting in dollar for dollar would not be fair. So say you decide that 80%, 90% of your income all goes into your joint account. You still have 10 or 20% of your money that goes to your individual personal account, and you get to decide whatever you want to do with that money. It helps you maintain your individuality and you're not arguing over every single dollar spent. I mean, let's get real here. If we had a joint account, then my husband wouldn't have this and all of these, right? I mean, I'd be like, honey, seriously, you need another bass, another guitar. But we don't do that, which actually allows us to have so much freedom in our relationship. We have our pooled money that we do things together and make those big decisions together. And then we have our own money that we get to do whatever the hell we want to with it. But remember, you want to keep it proportionate. So let's just say the woman makes $100,000 and the guy only makes $50,000. If she puts 90% in, she would put $90,000 in. And he only makes $50,000, so 90% of that is $45,000, so he would put $45,000 in. So that joint account's going to have $145,000 that they both contributed to it. And that's how you pay rent, utilities, go on vacations, and all the things that you guys do together. But in her account, she has $10,000 that she can do whatever she wants. And he has $5,000 where he can do whatever he wants. And so there's no arguing. Isn't it the most brilliant plan?